Good evening. I'd like to call the first HRA meeting of 2024, Tuesday, January 9th, 2024, to order. The first item on the agenda is the approval of the agenda. Is there any additions or corrections to the agenda this evening?
Thank you, Chair Huhim. Erica Coleman, HRA Administrator. I just want to highlight that I did add an item and republish the agenda, but that is appointing an interim HRA Board Vice Chair. So I just want to add that that has been added to the agenda from today.
Thank you. Are there any questions? Hearing none, I'll be looking for a motion to approve this evening's agenda.
So moved.
We have a motion by Commissioner Mueller.
Second.
And a second by Commissioner Doblinger to approve the Tuesday, January 9th, 2024 HRA meeting agenda. All those in favor, please signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Motion, or those opposed, please signify by saying nay. All those in favor, please, geez, it's the first one of the year. We're gonna just take a restart here. Motion passes 4-0. Moving on to organizational business, item 3 on tonight's agenda. Item 3.1 is appointing the newly appointed commissioners and them taking their oath of office.
Thank you, Chair Huhim. We will have our City Clerk, Scipione, provide the oath of office for Council Members Carter and Mua and Commissioner Appointed Commissioner Issei.
Councilmember Carter, I'll have you come up first. Stand right here for me, please. You know the drill. Please repeat after me. I, Jenna Carter, do solemnly swear
I, Jenna Carter, do solemnly swear
that I will support the Constitution of the United States
that I will support the Constitution of the United States
and the state of Minnesota
and the state of Minnesota
and faithfully discharge the duties
and faithfully discharge the duties
of the Office of Housing and Redevelopment Authority Commissioner
of the Office of Housing and Redevelopment Authority Commissioner
of the City of Bloomington
of the City of Bloomington
in the County of Hennepin
in the County of Hennepin
and state of Minnesota
and state of Minnesota
to the best of my judgment and ability.
to the best of my judgment and ability.
Congratulations. I'll have you sign. Thank you.
Come on up.
All right.
Councilmember Moore, come on over.
Please raise your right hand and repeat after me. I, Sa Mua, do solemnly swear
I, Sa Mua, do solemnly swear
that I will support the Constitution of the United States
that I will support the Constitution of the United States
and the state of Minnesota
and the state of Minnesota
and faithfully discharge the duties
and faithfully discharge the duties
of the Office of Housing and Redevelopment Authority Commissioner
of the Office of Housing and Redevelopment Authority Commissioner
of the City of Bloomington
of the City of Bloomington,
in the County of Hennepin
the County of Hennepin,
and state of Minnesota
and state of Minnesota
to the best of my judgment and ability.
to the best of my judgment and ability.
Congratulations. I'll have you sign it. Thank you. Head on up. Commissioner Issei. Come on over. I'll have you raise your right hand, please, and repeat after me. I, Samira Issei, do solemnly swear
I, Samira Issa, do solemnly swear
that I will support the Constitution of the United States
that I will support the Constitution of the United States
and of the state of Minnesota
and of the state of Minnesota
and faithfully discharge the duties
and faithfully discharge the duties
of the Office of Housing and Redevelopment Authority Commissioner
of the Office of Housing and Redevelopment Authority Commissioner
of the City of Bloomington
of the City of Bloomington
in the County of Hennepin
in the County of Hennepin
and the state of Minnesota
and the state of Minnesota
to the best of my judgment and ability.
to the best of my judgment and ability.
Congratulations.
right, welcome. Welcome, new commissioners. It's great to have a full board. It's exciting. With that, we'll move on to item 3.2, which is the appointing interim HRA board vice chair. Can we have the staff report, please?
Thank you, Chair Huhim. So with the term expiration of a previous commissioner at the end of last year, it is necessary that the current HRA board commissioners nominate and vote on the appointment of a commissioner as interim vice chair until the next annual meeting of the HRA board, which will be February 13th, 2024. Per our bylaws, Article 3, Section B, officers of the HRA shall consist of a chair, a vice chair, and a secretary, and such other officers as shall from time to time be chosen and appointed by the commissioners. Furthermore, the duties of the vice chair per the bylaws state that the vice chair shall be selected by the commissioners, shall preside at all meetings of the commissioners in the absence of the chair, and shall perform such other duties as may be assigned by the commissioners. In the case of death, retirement, or resignation of the chair, the vice chair shall perform and be vested with all the duties and powers of the chair until such time that a new chair is chosen by the commissioners. And so now it would be a either nomination of a commissioner or commissioners, or a commissioner or commissioners highlighting or making known that they are interested in holding that interim role for right now, and then a vote on that.
Wonderful. Are there any nominations or interest in the temporary interim or the interim vice chair position?
I would be interested.
Okay. Commissioner Mueller has an interest. Is there anyone else on the board that has interest in it? Hearing none, we'll be looking for a motion to approve Commissioner Mueller to vice chair of the HRA board, or interim vice chair of the HRA board.
So moved.
We have a motion by Commissioner Dolblinger and a second by Commissioner Wooten to appoint Commissioner Mueller as interim vice chair of the HRA board. All those in favor, please signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Aye. Opposed? Motion passes 7-0. Congratulations. Moving on to item number 4, approval of the minutes. Item 4.1 is the approval of the December 12th, 2023 HRA board meeting minutes. Are there any questions or concerns or changes to the minutes? Hearing none, we'd be looking for a motion to approve the December 12th, 2023 HRA board meeting minutes.
I would motion to approve.
We have a motion by Commissioner Wooten
Second?
and a second by Commissioner Carter to approve the December 12th, 2023 HRA board meeting minutes. All those in favor, please signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Motion passes 7-0. Moving on to new business, item 5.1 is the adoption of utility allowance schedule for Bloomington HRA rent assistance programs. May we have the staff report, please?
Yes, good evening, Chair and Commissioners. I'm here to present the, is it on? Oh, yeah. I'm here to present the new utility allowance for 2024. Just like the income limits and the payment standards, we have to update these annually, and we look at costs for our residents in the metro area, cooking electric, gas, and so forth. Uses for the utility allowance are for the HCV program that we administer, but also for future developers when they're looking at staying within affordability ranges. They look at rent and utilities, and also for tax credit properties in the future that want to stay in compliance with the state. Housing authorities are required to develop a utility allowance in their rental assistance programs. It is a credit for tenant-paid utilities to determine the share of the family's costs in housing. The allowances are based on average consumption for an energy-conservative household. The federal guidelines require a schedule revision if there's any changes up or down 10%. Last year, if you remember, we did have some significant increases, obviously, to the significant costs in energy with water, sewer, and trash. But this year, the only cost that they found was the increase in the oil. And most of the Bloomington residents typically don't have oil for their heat. At least I haven't come across one. So not much change in regards to the utility allowance, but we still need to update it. Staff is requesting the board to approve the utility allowance to be effective for January 1st.
Wonderful. Are there any questions? Okay. Hearing no questions, we'll be looking for a motion to approve the attached utility allowance schedule for use in the housing choice voucher and other rent assistance programs effective January 1st, 2024.
So moved.
We have a motion by Commissioner Doblinger and a second by Commissioner Mua, correct? Okay, making sure I'm saying that correctly. To approve the attached utility allowance schedule for use in the housing choice voucher and other rent assistance programs effective January 1st, 2024. Are there any questions? Hearing none, all those in favor, please signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Motion passes 7-0.
Thank you.
Moving on to item 5.2, it's the 2024 Bloomington Home Fair. May we have the staff report?
Thank you, Chair Huhim. So the item before you is for a 2024 Bloomington Home Fair. Historically, Bloomington has held through the HRA and all the city departments a Bloomington Home Improvement Fair that was held every other year in even years around February. Since the pandemic, we have actually not held a home improvement fair since February 2020. There would have been one in February of 2022, but due to the ongoing pandemic, we did decide to cancel at that time. Well, we do think it is safe enough to hold a home fair in 2024. And some of the things that we are proposing is, one, that it's not a home improvement fair, but that it's a home fair. Because the HRA and other departments and divisions across the city touch all different aspects across the housing continuum, then a fair that is held should be a home fair to help provide resources, information, education, and engagement around that. Two, we are proposing that it actually happens in April when it's a little nicer out. But in addition to that, it does not compete with potential elections. And in 2024, there is a presidential election, so there are other dates, primaries, and things that have to happen earlier in the year. But also April's nicer, and it is National Fair Housing Month. What better month than to hold a home fair? So what we are looking at is that I wanted to bring before you that information about the process that we are looking to embark upon, or we've already embarked upon it actually, because it's January. And what we would like to do is just do the home fair for 2024, but at this point we would like to offer we'd like to offer that we have an event coordinator. In prior years, it was HRA staff that would spend 6 to 7 months working on the planning and execution with another group of different employees across the city and spending overtime to try and make sure we did everything, our daily work as well as this event. And we would hold it here at Bloomington Civic Plaza. We have a great turnout. However, we think we've outgrown it. And so we are proposing this year that we actually hold it at Valley View. And that, yes, and that we use an event planner to help not only plan the event, but the execution of it, reaching out with vendors, a coordination, centralized registration, and just more of a streamlined process. It also allows for a greater opportunity for other participants and or cities, because Bloomington's been holding the biggest one every other year for quite a while now, and there may be other opportunities in the future. And so we would look at working with an event planner that would not exceed $50,000. And the reason that amount is in there is just the authority in which to look at getting multiple bids and or quotes, and then being able to sign off on being able to use that as I have as administrator. So I put that amount in there so you would know that it wouldn't exceed that. In terms of budget, every year we have allocated funding in our budget to the home fair, home improvement fair, home fair. We usually allocate about $25,000 a year, and it's rolled into the budget. So since we haven't held one since 2020, we have funding from 2021, 2022, 2023, and now 2024 allocated to the budget for a 2024 home fair. The home fair typically ranges between $25,000 to $30,000 total, and some of that is included with vendor payments that go into that budget in addition to HRA funding that is set aside. So usually we break even around vendor payments and what we have, and so that's where the money is coming from, to look at an event coordinator, to look at any costs that would be related to the location, as well as to have a successful event as we have done in past years, but just now expanded to include more housing needs and services across the community. And I can stand for any questions.
Are there any questions? Commissioner Mua?
Thank you, Chair. Questions around interest from vendors? I'm sure since we haven't had it for a while, we'd just love to understand the state of the vendors and their support in this project.
Thank you, Chair Huhim, Commissioner Mua. That is a great question. So in the past, we have had vendors, because it was home improvement, we have had vendors that have been more so contractors, window companies, actual vendors like that, in addition to maybe some big box businesses as well as departments throughout the city, public health, environmental health, public works, as well as some realtors. With the understanding and direction of being a home fair, recently have been in more touch with potentially there are different businesses such as banks or financial institutions, I should say, that are in Bloomington that have already said they're interested. There are affinity groups for real estate professionals. Instead of doing necessarily realtors who all may have different businesses or different companies, and how do you say how you chose one over the other? Using affinity groups that have real estate professionals but also represent cultural or identity specific. So when I say that, what I mean is there are groups for Hispanic real estate professionals, Asian Pacific Islander, Black African American, as well as LGBTQIA+. So that's what I mean when I say affinity groups, to explain that a little bit better, as well as nonprofits. So we have a lot of organizations, VEEP, Oasis for Youth. These are organizations that are working in the community, have connections with community, but they're also able to provide more information and serving our residents here or future residents, as well as the county. So all of these have actually been mentioned to, and they are interested, and we will be looking at them to be the type of vendors, as well as just more information about where people can get that information about trusted contractors or trusted businesses to use on different work on their homes, which is usually through the state.
One follow-up question on that. Because we're suggesting to host at Valley View Middle, have we contacted the school district to see if they would like to be part of this, considering home is a big part of children, and we know that stability in the home provides opportunity for children for better learning. So have we had that conversation with the school district?
Thank you, Chair Huhim and Commissioner Mua. We do have a relationship with Office of Educational Equity, and so they are aware, but I haven't asked just yet, will they participate in terms of having a booth or maybe just having some type of events, but we do have that relationship, and we do connect with them about different housing information, as well as we partner with Bloomington Public Schools on other initiatives related to housing, and they have participated in other events that we have held here for resources and information. So they're usually on site participating when we hold something.
Any other questions? Commissioner Carter?
Thank you. So I just want to clarify, when you say Valley View, do you mean elementary, middle, park?
Thank you, Chair Huhim and Commissioner Carter. I had to check with my staff who are amazing and have been leading this effort. I mean Valley View Middle
Okay.
School.
I initially went to the park and I was like, in April, like, we may not have a blizzard. I mean, based on how this winter is going, but okay. Thank you for clarifying that. And then I did have a question around the consultant, just like if it would be a new FT or a consultant, but it sounds like it's a consultant.
Oh,
Temporary.
yes, it's a consultant,
Yep.
sorry.
And then we wouldn't have to make any kind of like budget adjustment or anything because it's already in the budget and approved and.
That is correct, yes.
And then on the vendors, just clarifying. So home improvement vendors would no longer really probably be there, but you already mentioned then the list of approved or reputable vendors that comes from the state.
Thank you.
Sharing.
Thank you, Chair Huhim, Commissioner Carter, for the opportunity to clarify. So what I mean by that is previously we had like actual companies, window installers, people like that. And one of the concerns around that, or excuse me, one of the opportunities around that is as a homeowner, you may not know who to contact to get the work done. And so that was the opportunity through the home improvement fair. What I'm saying is the direction shift would be that even when, so around home improvement, since the HRA does offer home improvement loan programs, loans, one of the things we have to do is we have to check and see that not only is the contractor licensed and in good standing, but they're actual registered entity. And so being able to have the organizations such as Secretary of State, Department of Commerce, different state organizations that make sure those organizations are signed up with that. That's an opportunity to say, hey, here, homeowner, here's how you can look that information up to find somebody that works in your community, in addition to the list that we have. And so, yes, I would be looking more for that type. I'm not saying we're going to completely exclude home improvement vendors, so I don't
So
want
if there
to
were like,
give that.
yeah, some like local small businesses that
Yes.
wanted to come. Yeah.
Yeah.
Okay, perfect. And then my only other suggestion, and I think it's probably already being considered because you're talking about other departments and divisions, but I just was thinking about some of the sustainability efforts in garbage and recycling, reusing, and all of the events. And I feel like because those are newer efforts at the city, there are still a lot of people who don't know about them. And I think about, maybe if somebody is looking to move from a rental unit to a house and like cleaning out and, I think that there's a lot of opportunity there too, so.
Yes, thank you, Commissioner Carter. A great point. I just want to say that we are the Housing and Redevelopment Authority, but everybody touches housing somehow because in the city of Bloomington because we're working for our residents. And so one of the things about making it the Bloomington Home Fair is also bringing that forward to show that look at everything the city does and how the city works together to serve its residents. And so really wanting to highlight that and bring that to the forefront. And so yes, sustainability, garbage hauling, recycling, just all the different things that we do, be able to bring that information, finance, bring the information forward that residents are interested in that help them because it's all related to their home.
Are there any other questions?
Just quick one,
Commissioner
just to
Mueller?
clarify, you haven't picked a date yet?
Thank you,
You said
Chair.
April, but
Thank you, Chair Huhim and Commissioner Mueller. Actually, we have picked a date and reserved the school. It's April 20th.
Are there any other questions? Hearing none, we will move on to item 5.3, which is Bloomington Affordable Home Ownership. May we have the staff report?
Thank you, Chair Huhim. Commissioners, I wanted to bring this information before you as well as our residents and anyone that is watching. So there was a email that went out to you all. We did make sure we put it in our internal communications with Bloomington this week, as well as it was a press release. And I thought, what better opportunity is to come before you and give the information, open up for discussion, and answer some questions or comments around it. So, Bloomington Affordable Home Ownership, so the HRA as a first-time applicant, we actually were a first-time applicant. The HRA and or the City of Bloomington have not applied to Minnesota Housing for this funding before. And when Minnesota Housing went through their board meeting for staff to recommend selection and approval, noted that Bloomington HRA was a first-time applicant, and they were very excited to be able to recommend approval. And so we have been awarded $3,199,500. This is grant funding from Minnesota Housing for a new Bloomington Affordable Homeownership program. So this is also a new program that the manual will have to come before you all to approve before the program is fully launched, so stay tuned. But this is the full amount that was requested by the HRA. And so the Bloomington Affordable Homeownership Program will create 27 new construction single-family homes using infill lots in Bloomington. Infill lots are vacant land that do not have structures on them, so opportunity to build structures. Single family does mean 1 and 2 units, but each would be individually owned, right? So this would align with what we have done here at the City of Bloomington. The HRA will coordinate the redevelopment of current HRA-owned land, as well as purchase of additional parcels that are land or have unoccupied blighted structures on them to be cleared for redevelopment. So we do currently own some parcels, and recently we purchased some parcels that we did need to demolish the blighted structures. Those 2 parcels are going to be included in the total for using for this program. And so the project will serve households at or below 80% area median income, preserve long-term affordability with a deed restriction for owner occupancy, and the resale restriction for a minimum of 15 years. So what that means is we have to income qualify the households in the beginning. They have to be at or below 80% area median income to purchase the home. That's even after qualifying for a mortgage and everything. They cannot exceed that, and that is actually a term of the funding that we applied for at Minnesota Housing. A deed restriction for owner occupancy. What that means is that we do issue rental licenses here in the city of Bloomington. Therefore, we know if somebody's going to rent the house out. These houses would have a deed restriction that says they cannot be rented for 15 years. So in addition to cannot be rented for 15 years, they also, if they resell the property, they have to sell it to somebody at or below 80% area median income. That's where that 15-year long-term affordability minimum comes in. And so the purpose of the funds will be to provide value gap subsidy. So value gap is the difference between what it costs to build a home and what you can actually sell it for as an affordable purchase price. So when I submitted this application, building a new home in the city of Bloomington is around $488,000. Well, typically in the open market, if you build a home for $488,000, you could typically sell it for over $500,000. Well, that's not affordable for quite a few people. And so in order to get that affordability down where the mortgage for the home buyer is at an affordable amount, which according to Metropolitan Council is $304,700. That is what Metropolitan Council says is affordable to an 80% area median income household today. And that might change in months to come, but today that's what they say. And so the funding from Minnesota Housing helps buy that down between $488,000 to $304,700. So that is from Minnesota Housing, $3,199,500 divided by 27 is $118,500 per unit. That already is helping get that value, that price down. These homes are not going to be cheaply built. They are not going to be built different to any other standards. They'll be built according to every last building and city zoning code standard that any other house would have to be built to. They're same quality. And so this project will also create and provide opportunities for small and emerging developers that have been historically underutilized and or underrepresented to develop and or construct the 27 units. And so what's going to happen is that, one, because we're using land that the HRA owns, you all as a body have to decide and vote on the disposition, so the sale of that land. Are you selling that land at a market rate value? Are you writing the price down? When you write the price of the land down on a program like this, that goes towards subsidy. So if it costs $488,000 to build a home, that does include the value of the land. Well, if the land is now cheaper, you already are getting lower and lower on that gap that it would be between $488,000 and $304,000. So you have some opportunities there. You also have some opportunities with funding that the HRA already has in the development fund, that if you wanted to provide more funding towards the value gap, you could. And so basically between $304,700 and $488,000, we're still looking at about $184,000 to get down. So $118,500 is a very big chunk coming from Minnesota Housing and grant funds to be able to help us with that, where we can do more. And that's how we get to 27 units across the city of Bloomington. This is not a particular area in Bloomington, it's across the city in Bloomington, and where there are opportunities for the HRA to own land or purchase more land for this program. Additionally, as I said, that the projects are the construction of the homes will be to the quality standards that we have in our code and that we enforce here in the city of Bloomington. They will also incorporate the Minnesota housing requirements of universal design and accessibility, visitability, which is actually requiring larger door openings, at least one no-step entrance, and a half bath or larger bedroom on a main level in a two-story or more home, and enterprise green communities, which aligns with our sustainability efforts. So in terms of accessibility, in terms of universal design, in terms of sustainability, this is going to completely align with what have already been identified as goals and values for the city of Bloomington as a whole.
Commissioner Wooten.
Would that include solar?
Thank you for the question, Chair Huhim, Commissioner Wooten. It could, but it's not a requirement. We could look at the opportunity for some of the homes, and that's where we will further look at that when we look at the manual of the program, that where's there an opportunity to include some of those options by developers. There may be some developers that can do it and some developers that are like, no, we can't. But we can look at that. But it won't be a requirement. Not right now unless you make it one.
I'm just thinking about the opportunity of partnership with local, or not local, but with utility concerns.
Absolutely. Thank you. So I just want to just highlight that applying for the funding was the funding opportunity, and the end goals are direct results of our Bloomington-specific plans, the recommendations from the HRA assessment that were approved by this body for us to focus on creating and preserving affordable home ownership, our racial equity business plan that says to develop strategies to eliminate racial disparities, including but not limited to inequitable access and housing. When we provide more housing that's affordable, we can provide more opportunities for different racial backgrounds to be able to access the opportunity. And then Bloomington Tomorrow Together, in which continued actions toward affordable housing is a key touch point for all of our priorities, and specifically highlighting that housing is a primary wealth building tool. Inequitable access to this opportunity prevents the city from living out its values as community desires, as well as a lack of affordable housing exacerbates existing inequalities in all three areas of being a connected, welcoming, and equitably economic community. That was a hard one today. Furthermore, I added information about Minnesota Housing because I do believe that it probably is not a household name for everyone, that Minnesota Housing is our state housing finance agency. And this is a part of the programs that they have. And this was a consolidated request for proposals that they put out every year that we completed and responded to and were selected. This actually is not funding from the $1 billion plus housing bill that was passed. This is funding that Minnesota Housing already had. So just wanted to highlight that. And then lastly, we do have a webpage that has questions, frequently asked questions and opportunities for people to sign up on our newsletter. And it is the short link, blm.mn/BAH. So that's the short version for Bloomington, short version for Minnesota, and then BAH, Bloomington Affordable Homeownership. And I can stand for any questions as this is informational, but it's also discussion.
Commissioner Carter.
Thank you. So this is very exciting, and congratulations to you and the team. Yeah, it's just really incredible. I was like, Erica must be a really good grant writer. So I have one question about, you talked about the deed restrictions for owner occupancy and the resale restriction for a minimum of 15 years. And so if somebody were to resell in like within 5 years, you talked about needing to sell to somebody who is at that 80% AMI. So I guess I'm just curious, how does that work? So do they have to sell it at what the Met Council deems an affordable price point, or do they have to work with their realtor to figure, or do they work with us to resell? Or
Yeah. Thank you, Chair Huhim and Commissioner Carter, for the question. So I'm gonna try and provide the answers on that. So one of the things is that 80% area median income is usually calculated by HUD for each community. However, what the Metropolitan Council goes a step further and does is say, here's the estimated affordable mortgage based on a few assumptions. The interest rate is 5%. Taxes are around this. And from those assumptions, they say, here's what we estimate to be an affordable first mortgage purchase price. However, I'm using that as a what's the word? As a whatever the word is, sorry. I'm using it to dictate what the end purchase price amount should originally be on these properties. But when somebody goes to resell the property, what they are looking at is 80% area median income for that household, adjusted by household size at the time. And then they're not dictating the amount as much as we are. They're more so dictating the amount as 80% AMI for a household of 4 today is a little bit over $90-something thousand. And then they take that amount and say, well, at $90-something thousand, 30% of your income, here's the mortgage here's the payment you should be able to afford. And then they calculate that out and say, okay, and that is a price of this. So it's not going to be the purchase price amount that it's going to be. It's really going to be based on that income. And it is something that the realtor or whoever is helping them sell the house, they would have to provide that information. What I'm pausing on is, as you know, I came from the city of Minneapolis, and there is a program that I actually worked on and ran and used this type of funding and did. So I'm using all of that, and I'm trying to explain that to you in the simplest way of how we're getting there. But it is on staff and the HRA to have to double check the paperwork, to have to double check the income, to have to double check how it's being sold, the mortgage. It is on staff for us to do that as we administer the program. And one of the ways we are triggered on that is because when we say a deed restriction, that is recorded at the county level. So when title work is done and they're looking to sell this property, they get a red flag, so to speak. Now they're going to contact us because we basically have a lien on the house. And so if they go to sell the property outside of those parameters within that time frame, they owe the money back. So that's the trigger.
Got it.
Is they're going to owe. So this is a grant, but if you violate the stipulations, now you got to pay the money back. And you might not have it because they might not have it out of the net proceeds, but that's what that ends up being. But then what it is that when they go to sell the property, like I said, it's going to be probably valued at least $488,000. That's what it costs to build it, but that's not what it's sold for. So there is some equity, there is some value there. They cannot just sell it for more than if that's not going to be affordable to an 80% AMI. So it's almost like the equity's being rolled into the next buyer within the 15-year period. And it's very similar to what the land trust model does, except the land trust model, you don't own the land. So that's what this is. Oh,
Yeah, that's very, very helpful.
Okay.
Yeah, thank you. And then after 15 years, then they're just kind of,
They-
deed restrictions are lifted.
Yes.
Houses on the market.
Yes.
Okay, thank you.
Any other questions?
I was just going to add
Commissioner Mueller?
2 cents on there. When a real estate agent lists a house, there, like on MLS, there's the remarks that the public see about the house, and then there's a little section, agent-only remarks. And in those remarks is where the agent can put, this is a, longstanding affordable housing, or whatever it might be. So someone going, hey, I want to look at this place, oh, I might not qualify. So a good agent will put that in the notes so everyone knows.
Thank you.
Other questions? Commissioner Moa?
Thank you, Chair. When we talk about I got a few questions. So when we're talking about 80% AMI, is that only at the time of application, or do they have to maintain that throughout their time that they are present in that property?
Thank you. That is only at the time of application. We will not be income checking people on their ownership of their home.
Perfect, because I think that discourages people to continue to build wealth
great
and
question.
equity. And I also just wanted to make sure I mentioned this. Very excited. Thank you, staff, for all the work and effort that you put into this, especially finding external revenue sources to support a program like this. Just shows the dedication that the HRA staff has, and so I don't want that to be forgotten. And then as far as and then I have a question on the 15-year restrictions. So say someone purchases a house and then sells it in 5 years. Does that 15-year clock start again, or is it only 15 years total that we're talking about?
Thank you for the question. That is only for 15 years total. Little bit in the weeds, but there is something when referring to information with HUD called resale and recapture. Recapture is you sell it, you pay it back, it's done. Resale is, for this time frame, this restriction that stays on that deed for this time frame, and then it falls off or it's satisfied, does not keep starting over if a property turns over. I will add to that, one of the reasons for that is there's something called the secondary mortgage market. Fannie Mae, Freddie Mac, Ginnie Mae, and they buy mortgages and they back them. They're government security, they're GSEs. They're backing them, saying, you know what, we're not going to let this property default. Like, we will make sure that this will be protected. If something was to happen, we'll take the property back. And it's almost like they protect the lending institutions and the consumers. And so one of the things that they will not buy are mortgages that have deed restrictions that keep starting over. And so there's a reason, like, when you are setting these types of things up, you have to think about the whole market, and you want to make sure that you're not restricting the very people you're trying to help from being able to actually benefit from this. And if we were to put something like that on there with constant, and I know you weren't saying that, but if we were to put something on there that was too restrictive, then there are the GSEs that would not purchase these types of mortgages because of how the property is tied up.
And then last question, more of a technical question, but as far as like floor plans, is that something we're setting, or is this going to be between the potential property owner and the new developers?
Thank you for that question, Commissioner Mua. We can look at that. So I think we should have opportunity to have diversity as much as possible, and that we should make sure that they fit our zoning, our planning standards, as well as our building code. And the reason I say it that way is that if we provide all the plans and say you just have to build this structure, we're also kind of limiting the opportunity that the small, emerging, and or historically disadvantaged developers have. One of the things I would like to do with this program is to help them grow their portfolio and grow their opportunity to do business. There's a lot, if you're small, emerging, even if you're large, you don't always get the opportunity to do business with a city or government. And so this is that opportunity. And so I would like to look at, sometimes they do ask, like, hey, do you have sample plans that we can look at of what you're looking for? And we can definitely look at providing something like that. But I would like to leave the opportunity open for more creativity and diversity of the properties that can be built, especially since I don't want to drive through the city of Bloomington and be like, oh, that was built with that funding, that was built with that funding, that, I don't want the cookie cutter that was built. So yes, and would be looking at that opportunity.
Are there any other questions or comments? Yeah, Commissioner Issei.
Yes, so how would these local businesses go about seeking that out or learning about this?
Thank you, Chair Huhim and Commissioner Issei. So right now we are going to be working on that. The reason for that is when I talk about small, emerging, historically underrepresented or underutilized developers, usually there's more technical assistance needed. Also, when I talk about developers that may not have worked with a city before, there's more technical assistance needed. And so one of the things that I've done is reached out to some of our nonprofit and or other organizational entities that offer specifically funding, construction funding, as well as technical assistance for small underutilized developers. And so there may be an opportunity to look at that, as well as we put the webpage up, as we put more information out, bringing that information and marketing that information around what the opportunities are. Since the press release went out, I've already had small contractors, painters, reach out. And I'm like, this is so great. Yes. And I can add your information, and let's make sure you're also connected to our home improvement loan program, because that painter actually was not. So that's the opportunity of us doing more marketing and engagement. The home fair is going to be a great opportunity to talk about what's coming and what's available. And so just doing more marketing and communication. So yes.
Are there any other questions or comments? I would just like to say something. To know where we came from with the assessment, and this is what's come out of that, is pretty amazing. The work of the staff, it speaks volumes. But I also think that the board needs to take a little bit of credit in the fact that we've allowed this to happen too. We've made some major changes and some very creative ways of creating housing, affordable housing. I just want to say I'm really glad to see where that assessment went, and the fact that we're going to have 27 new affordable homes in the city of Bloomington. I mean, that in and of itself is just amazing, and that a lot goes to the staff. You have an amazing staff, and I hope they realize that.
Yeah.
So,
thank you, Chair Huhim. I do want to say, when I say HRA, I'm including the whole organization, and so it is. None of this is possible without the leadership of this board. And so it is the board that has come forward, that has said, we want to see this, or question, why, what about this? Or do we have enough funding? How can we look at other things? And this board actually did tell me to look at leveraging other funding. It was in our strategic plan that just sunset last year. Actually told me, look at other funding. How can we do more? And so I do want to say, yes, it's the leadership of this board, and it is the dedication of my staff that are here and that are maybe watching, that are here day in and day out, that are just plugging away, and that, they may not always see the fruits of their labor immediately, but this is the fruits of their labor. And so this is very exciting, and I do appreciate that. And I do want to add one thing that I forgot. This is up to a 3-year grant. So we are looking for homes to take place over the next 3 years in terms of 27 new units, because I think that was a question of, you're going to pop up 27 units in 2024? How? No, we're not. So that's how that will be in the time frame for which the funding to be spent on these. And it is a draw type. You make draws to the state of Minnesota. They're not going to send us or wire us $3,199,500 at once. Just to clarify.
Are there any other questions or comments? Hearing none, that leads us to discussion items. Item 6.1 is Commissioner questions and comments. This is a section where if you have any questions or comments, the floor is open. Are there any? Hearing none, we will be moving on to adjournment, and I'm going to say what a way to end the first meeting of 2024 with this wonderful news of what's to come. So with that, we'll be looking to adjourn the Tuesday, January 9th, 2024 Housing and Redevelopment Authority meeting.
Move to adjourn.
We have a motion by Commissioner Wooten,
Second.
a second by Commissioner Dolblinger to adjourn the Tuesday, January 9th, 2024 HRA meeting. Wow. All those in favor, please signify by saying aye.
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 Opposed? Motion passes 7-0.